something else I've also learned, Nicole, that has helped me with balance. And people laugh at me when I say this, but I learned probably about a year ago, this is when I really, really got into this, is that no is a complete sentence. And
yes. I love that. I love it. So,
yes,
you know,
no is a complete sentence. And when I say no to something, you know, and so often we as women, we will say no to something and we will try to explain ourselves as to why we're saying no. And I noticed that my male counterparts don't do that. They just say no, and that's it.
Right.
And I look at other leaders, I look at other ministers, and you know, and I'll tell them, I'll say no, I just can't do it, and that's it.
Right.
You know, and I don't feel guilty about it. That's another thing about balancing is that when you make the decision of, you know, what you're going to do and what are going to be your priorities, and you're not going to deviate from those, you can't feel guilty about those.
Right.
You can't feel guilty about it at all.
Yeah, that's good. And, you know, I have to go here. I have to, because you are a minister. Yes, you are a minister. And, you know, one of those things that really kind of burden people, you know, are church activities. And they're all good things. So, you know, to the minister, the woman minister who's listening and who will be watching, you know, talk a little bit about your process to balance, you know, your church activities with your home activities. And I know they're probably some of the same process, but sometimes the feedback that you get may be a little different. You know, how people respond to you might be a little different because, you know, after all, it is church.
But I agree with you. It is church. But one of the things that I learned from my mom is that there is church, and then there is your relationship with God. And those are two different things. And so I never, ever, ever will sacrifice my relationship with God. What I mean by that is that I'm going to make sure that I am being fed spiritually. I'm going to make sure that I have my quiet time with the Lord. I'm going to make sure that I have my time of study and of doing the things that I need to do to feed my spiritual self, to get closer to the Lord. And that I'm not going to compromise. However, when it comes to balancing, you know, the ministry and the activities, there are times that I have to say, I can't be there, or someone else is going to have to do this, or let me find someone else for you, because I've learned that sometimes if I do too much church work, again, that is not my relationship with God, that's church activities at the church. And when you are at a large church, there can be activities every single night. Okay? And so I've had to learn that sometimes I can't do those activities because I've got other things that I've got to do that are in terms of the work that I want to do. I need to do with my son or my relationship with God or something else that God may have for me in this season. You know, I'll give you a perfect example. This will really help a lot of the women ministers who are out there. You know, the scriptures tell us in 1 Timothy, you know, I've got to go here. I'm a minister,
that's
so
right. Go ahead. Yeah, that's exactly what I want you to do. Go. Yes.
The scripture, if you're writing out there, the scripture tells us in 1 Timothy chapter 3, verses 1 through 7. And if you look at the end of that scripture, and I'm reading, kind of paraphrasing this from the Message Bible, but it says that we must handle our own affairs well. That as ministers, we must be attentive to our children and have their respect. And that if we're unable to handle our own affairs, then how can we take care of God's church? And so I from the school thought that listening to that, hearing that scripture, that I've got to make sure that my own home is in order, and my home includes my husband, includes my son, and it includes my relationship with the Lord. And so those three things right there, my husband, my son, and my relationship with God, I don't compromise those. Just recently, actually, Nicole, I had to step down from something at church. That's something that I had been doing for, I say, about 5 or 6 years. And it was it was teaching, and I was teaching every single week. And then it got to the point where I was having to be absent for certain reasons. Some of them were speaking engagements, some of them were my son, some of them were my job. But either way, I had to be absent. And that wasn't setting a good example. Now, while my heart wanted to try to make sure I did that and got there, I knew that I had to set an example for other leaders in the church. And so sometimes in order to set that example, in order to actually balance the work, the ministry, the family, the home, you have to step down from doing things. And it was my season. I did it during the season that I needed to do it. And now it's my season to do something else, and God is honoring that. And I think sometimes we as ministers, we want to stay in a place for so long, and God is telling us that our season is up for that, and it's time for you to move on to what He now needs you to do in another part of the kingdom. So I'll stop right there, because I can go on and on that one.
I'm sitting here, I'm chuckling, I'm thinking, yes, go ahead, go ahead, go ahead. You know, because